Hello, hello. It's so good to be back here in the space and sharing another Oracle card reading. If you regularly have been watching these updates, please receive my apology for not doing the last full moon update. I was really needing the time to recover as I was sick and just needed to really honor the space and the time that I needed so that I could be at my best. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for returning. If you are new, hi, welcome. And we're going to be tapping into this energy that is present with this new moon solar eclipse in Scorpio. And I started feeling this last week. I always can feel the eclipses as they're coming in, usually within like a 2-week window before. So less than a 2-week window, and I'm sure that you all have probably felt it in your own way. Some of the themes around eclipses are chaos, unrest, and upheaval. It's a time when things that have been left in the dark are brought to the light. So secrets, especially Scorpio. Scorpio is, it's secrets, is esoteric. It's usually hidden, dark, deep. But it's also passion. It's creative and loving and depth. I think that that's the word I'm really looking for rather than loving. It's a depth to the experience, which could be the polarities of both the light or the dark. So there's an intensity with Scorpio, and yet I know that there are some other cosmic players, Venus being one of them right now, and that may soften this energy of the eclipse and may not make it so sharp as we sometimes can experience, like back during eclipse season in May. So let's just go right into it. And the first card that I am going to pull, or that's going to jump out, is going to be for this eclipse. Just to give us kind of an overall look at what might be offered from this eclipse. And even though it is a time where there's like unrest and just maybe even unexpected things, disturbances, this could be a portal, especially with Scorpio, which is death and transformation and like critical change, that we may see that this may be a portal for endings and beginnings, and just morphosis, a transitionary phase perhaps. So with that, we can focus on the negativity that can be brought forth from that, or we can know that the long game, the end game, is that we're tilling the earth so that that new life can spring forward, or that the transition can be made. So just honoring the process, whatever it may be, and really being fully immersed, fully open to the emotional experience, to the heart-centered experience of whatever it is that you are meeting. So the card that jumped out is from my Earth Warrior Oracle deck, which those of you who've been with me for a minute know I really love this deck. And this first card is Amaru, and it represents a beautiful place. And you can see in this picture, you've got the butterfly at the very top. So I think of metamorphosis, of course. And then you've got the child and the mother. And you can see the heart there. There's another butterfly. And then the lion and the horse. Oh, that's a unicorn. So all of that, just looking at this card, There's a deep level of mysticism here. And I'm just going to show you again because there's some other details there with the hummingbirds. You can also see that there's a heart up at the high heart. And then there's a lotus. Your dreams of a more beautiful world are not a product of childish fantasy nor idle imagination. They are true spiritual visions inspired by the universal heart of the divine that yearns for beauty to be manifested in all worlds. You have a life purpose to assist in the creation of divine harmony in the world through sacred activism and the expression of your soul talents. Believe that the beautiful world you long for is not only possible, but part of your spiritual responsibility to create. So the message that I'm receiving from that it turns us back towards how do we become what we want to see in the world? How are we making the efforts to live our life in a way that represents the world that we want to exist? So because this is the time of transformation, and of course the solar eclipses are always going to happen on a new moon. And it's, I don't want to give a term of like 100 times more potent, but it's much more powerful. It amplifies the new moon itself, and yet traditionally it's not advised, if you will, to do manifestation during eclipses because they are so chaotic and we don't want to manifest more chaos. So the message that I am just feeling into with this is really just making this about how do we find that place in ourselves, how do we identify how we can align with the actions, the thoughts, and the feelings that represent the world that we want to see. So some of the ways that we may get there is by asking the question, how do I free myself? And in the deepest sense, knowing that you free yourself by finding yourself. And one of the things that I just love about Scorpio is its depth. It is like the deep, dark crevices, but it's also the most powerful, intimate experiences that we can have as humans, also through our heart, through any part of that emotional spectrum. You can zoom in and reach the full potential of whatever that is. So that could be working with, if you were going all the way to the extreme, it could be fear, it could be working with worry, it could be working with shame and guilt and some of those heavier, more dense emotional frequencies. But then you can also find the joy and the appreciation and the gratitude and the bliss on the opposite end of the spectrum. And then you can find neutrality right there in the center. So let's keep going with this and see. So these two cards work more with the mind. Like, how can we devote our mind to being a good leader and influencer for our experience? The decision to make the present moment into your friend is the end of the ego. The ego can never be in alignment with the present moment, which is to say, aligned with life. since its very nature compels it to ignore, resist, and devalue the now. And I have to just mention part of my experience in the last week. I had this aha moment of seeing all of the different ways that I've developed these methods of trying to control life. And I just had this moment of being like, wow, what if I actually didn't plan? What if it's not necessary for me to plan to the extent that I do? Not to say that we shouldn't plan our life or think ahead or make sure that we budget for things. But for me, I experienced this deeply ingrained habit of taking myself out of the present in an obsessive way of trying to plan things out in my mind, which is in effect really just another experience of worry, thinking that I'm controlling something, giving my mind a sense of false comfort because I think that I'm doing something when I'm actually just kind of spinning out my energy. So I had that moment of going, oh wow, I think I need to reevaluate the resources that I am lending to this kind of impulsive behavior that's actually not grounded and is taking me out of the present moment. Because there's a difference between when we receive some kind of input or stimulus or alert to work towards something for the future, a future goal. And then there is an impulse that tries to take us out of the present moment, where really we're just avoiding something. So back to what I was saying about the ego, and the ego really denying the present moment and wanting to always pull us away from it. So how do you set yourself free? Well, maybe it has something to do with seeing where you are investing the resources of your mental resources, your emotional resources, physical resources into outlets that aren't really working towards whatever the believed prospect or result would be. So it's spinning the wheels out. Like I was saying, it's like worry. It's essentially worry in another form. So guilt is coming up, and I've really felt this sacral center activation, which that's also scorpionic. If we're looking at the zodiac and its relationship to the body and to the chakra system, it would be linked with the sacral center. So passion, creativity, birth, rebirth, and also guilt. You may often feel that stored in this part of the body or in that energetic system. So yeah, how do you feel about your resources? How do you feel about sexuality? Is guilt in some way binding you to this cycle that keeps you in the suffering, or that keeps you in the spinning out of the resources? The other two cards that help to balance this would be gratitude and self-esteem. And so as I'm looking at this, the answer the answer is always going to, as I know this sounds very cliche, the answer is always going to be love. But finding those places where you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel proud, you don't feel like you want to be seen. I think the word I was looking for is like obscured. So like those places that you really just kind of are holding back, you know, perhaps there's guilt, perhaps there's shame attached to that, perhaps there's fear, of course, because that's always really going to be the core wound. Can you seek the lesson or just the gratitude, like just finding the appreciation, finding the beauty? It comes back to this card at the top about creating a beautiful place in the world. Well, how, if you yourself feel ashamed of these things or feel guilty about these things, how would you want it to be met in the outer world? Or what do you want to see? Let's put it like that. Like, how would you want that to be received or treated in the outer world? Maybe like if it was actually your child experiencing these things, how would you want someone to hold space for them or to treat them or care for them? Or maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a pet, perhaps it's, you know, some entity that you hold a real tenderness around. Can you project that vision of the world that you want to create, but intermingle that inner world and the outer world? Like, how does that differ, and how can you maybe projecting that onto a different person, not actually doing this, like we're talking about visualizing. In doing that, can you build gratitude towards the experience? Can you let that reveal something else about the nature of the emotional tie that maybe you have to the feeling, to the thoughts, to the belief system? You know, gratitude keeps our heart open, and if we can keep the heart open, then the energy continues to move and it transforms. And in that, we can start to build the self-esteem, because we start to become in touch with the true self, the self that has never been touched by any of the human experience, that is unwavering, unchanging. So yes, the medicine here is gratitude and self-esteem. It feels like there's a little more that wants to be said about the self-esteem card. And we pull the ear chakras, which tells me that oh, yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So our chakra system, these energy centers that relate to the different levels of emotional awareness, emotional experience, mentality, our thought processes, and the physical vessel, the physical organs and systems of the body. They have pairs because everything in this particular reality system is in polarity. We live in a dual system. What am I trying to say? Dualistic reality. So you've got the polarities of positive and negative, always the light and the dark. And the sacral center is paired with the throat. The throat connects to the ears. I just want to be really clear that the ears are their own chakra. It's a chakra minor. The ears are connected to the throat. And what we got here is the ear chakra is about like really listening to the messages that we're getting. So this is more about turning towards ourself. Like, how do we really listen to ourself? How do we listen to our emotions? How do we listen to our fears? How do we listen to our inner child? Because the sacral center is also the home of the inner child. And being able to become a good listener, I think that has a lot to do with the world that most of us want to see created. We want to see a world where people are treated respectfully and where we're able to actually hear beyond words, where we use those deep listening skills, and we develop those skills first by being able to listen to ourselves, being able to listen to our gut instinct, being able to listen to our emotions, being able to listen to our spirit, and then developing that discernment of what's high guidance and not egoic. So the ear chakras are indicated as being being a place to focus your energy. How do you listen in a way that is honest, respectful, and truthful? And can you be honest with yourself? As always, can we be honest with ourselves? In addition, we have shielding ourselves. So it's not uncommon during eclipses for there to be arguments and hurt feelings and harsh words exchanged, and it's just a time of upheaval. People don't feel settled. People tend to be rattled more easily. So shielding yourself is important. Just knowing like everything that you're going to encounter is something that you're calling forth for your highest good, for the other person's highest good, if it's a person to person, if it's relations like that. And just to kind of back up a little bit and to check in with yourself before you just impulsively respond. If you do, then you forgive yourself. Sorry, my dogs are barking at the man. So just checking in and being able to release any guilt that you may be holding around a situation that has happened, or it could be something that is current and that you're currently dealing with. And this takes us right back to the heart. Let your heart be lifted up continually by your heart song of everlasting joy and gratitude. Gratitude's always going to dissolve and transform any of the lower experiences that we're having. It's the immediate shift of consciousness from the lower realms of consciousness. So seeking the gratitude, and because it's Scorpio, and because Scorpio has depth, then you should be able in this practice of gratitude to reach new depths of gratitude. And as you do that, you will reach new depths of self-awareness, which will lead to higher self-esteem, peace, and perhaps the deep listening skills necessary to create this new world that's coming forth. Let's see what else might be here in this top card that we started with that represents the eclipse. It says, don't be scared to face a problem head on. You don't need to be willful about a solution, but in meeting the issue, you shall simplify the complexity and recognize the practical steps that will create healing change. Keep your mind and heart open as you ask for unconditionally loving guidance on how to evoke divine healing in any situation. An outcome is available to you that is far more beautiful and divinely inspired than what you can currently envision. Ask for divine help and trust unconditionally in the assistance that will lead you from the limitations of your current thinking into the perfection of what the divine wishes for you and our world. It has been said that peace is not merely the absence of war. Earth warriors understand that we need to fight for peace in this world, using our strength, courage, creativity, intelligence, and constant will to align with the peaceful presence within. So just recapping on the medicine of this Scorpio new moon solar eclipse. There is an invitation to go into the deepest, darkest depths of our soul and our human experience during this time. And if we're able to do this, perhaps from the place of wanting to create a more beautiful world for ourselves, wanting to contribute to manifesting something that is what our heart knows to be true, we have to become that, which means that we may have to reach into the places that have been left behind and denied, obscured and hidden from ourselves, the deepest, darkest crevices of the ego and the foundations of our being that are recreating distortion in the world. And this also offers opportunities to expand into our light and to feel the incredible unconditional love that can be sparked by our human experiences, relations. And the questions that we can ask ourselves is, how do we free ourselves? Where do we not feel free? And this came up a few readings ago, of really looking at, where are we bound? Where are we not liberated? Where are we pulled away from the present moment? What keeps cycling and pulling us out of being present in any particular circumstance? But maybe there's some node that's getting activated for you right now. Maybe there's some specific sequence or pattern that you can look at in a meditative state and notice that it is a source of suffering, that it is a place that you want to be free, and you no longer want to contribute to the distortions of the world. You no longer want to have the habit or behavioral pattern that causes pain for yourself and for others. And a key in this, as you come to realize what that is listening very deeply to the story, listening very deeply to the feeling, and then listening very deeply to the heart and to the spirit, and finding the gratitude, using the practice of seeing that same situation experienced by someone you love, and let that ignite your own generosity of your heart. Let that ignite the generosity of love back to yourself, the forgiveness, the compassion, and then the gratitude. Find the gratitude in it, and then let that continue to develop the sense of self, the self-esteem. Let that grow through these experiences of gratitude for the pain, for the suffering, for the trouble, for the heartache. And in particular, look at any place that you're holding guilt. Look at any habit or pattern that you have of feeling guilty or projecting guilt. Maybe it has to do with projecting guilt onto other people. Do you guilt trip people? And I would assume that if you're guilt tripping others, that you also have that internal mechanism of guilting yourself. So be free and forgive. Just take a deep breath and let yourself go into the fullness of the feeling, and then it will change. And shield yourself. Know that you may meet people that are not as aware of astrological influences, are not as aware of themselves, and are not aware of the path of liberation that's available for them. As you choose to be that in that person's presence, you are giving them an example. You're giving them the reality, the possibility of what is possible in the world. And you are co-creating a world that is more respectful and more patient and more kind, more heart-centered. Let your heart be lifted up continually by your heart songs of everlasting joy and gratitude. So I'm just going to sit with that for a second. And I encourage you in any of your self-reflections this week, any of your meditations, to really start in your heart. And just feel the quality of the heart without any judgment. You can even place a hand over the heart and a hand over the belly. So first tuning into the heart and then tuning into the belly at the sacral center. And then you can tune into both of them at the same time. Just notice if there's an exchange that wants to happen. And if you're someone who you are concerned because you don't hear things and you don't experience visions or any of any of the more maybe psychic bandwidth, what's most important is that you're present for what you are experiencing and that you are watching what you are experiencing. Because sometimes even these visions are ways the ego is tricking us out of being present. So it's not always what it's cracked up to be. And if you know someone or you idolize some person that has these amazing abilities to see and hear, this clairaudience and clairsentience, it's not always what it seems. Sometimes they actually may be diverted from the path of truth of what is true and real. The most important thing is being present. So with that, I send you all with so much love and saying hey to those of you who join in on the chat. Thank you so much for being here and being present live with me. And thank you to all of those who watch. Please like, subscribe, and share if you know anyone that could receive from this message. And I look forward to sharing again in a couple weeks with the lunar eclipse. And until then, stay pure, keep it simple. Pura vida.